Hi there, something a little different today from my normal National Parks Photography talk. Today it's going to be a review of the Orient Adventure automatic watch. I do have an interest in watches, kind of a newer interest, and when I was researching this, I didn't find any reviews of it, at least any English language reviews. So if they're out there, I missed them, but sort of creating the content that I'd like to see and wished I had had when I was looking for this. The Orient Adventure is reference number FFA06003Y0. It's from Orient's, at least Orient USA's executive line, and it has the 46K40 automatic movement. So it has the outer bezel with the cities of the world, the inner bezel with world time. It has a power reserve meter and a date function. The Orient Adventure, right off the bat, one of my favorite things about it is for a world timer, I think it's a very clean design. It looks nice with just about anything you'd wear, which makes it a great travel watch. You can dress it down easily, but it also, you can see it kind of does slide under the sleeve of my suit here. So if you're dressing up and wearing it out for dinner, I think it looks great like that as well. The price is $535, but you shouldn't ever pay that. That's the list price from Orient USA. They always have, if you just watch their video or look around, they always have 30% off deals. And then if you sign up, keep track of their email listing, you can get it for 40 or even 50% off. So, that gets it down near $300 or even under $300. So at that price, I think it's really a tremendous value. The width of the watch is 43.5 millimeters, so it's a little on the bigger side, but not too giant. The thickness of the watch is 12.1 millimeters. And the lug diameter, the lug width here for the straps is 22 millimeters, so pretty standard for a watch of this size. The power reserve is 40 hours, and it comes with a 1-year warranty if you buy it from Orient. Taking a closer look at the dial of the watch, again, you can see that outer bezel with the list of cities in each time zone. Kind of using their airport codes or sort of the city code. So for instance, Chicago or New York don't have airport codes for CHI and NYC, but commonly if you're looking for those cities when traveling, you can use those as the city codes. And then there's a few other oddballs. If you see over at 2 o'clock SGS, best I can tell that is South Georgia and the Sandwich Islands, which doesn't even have an airport, or at least a major one, but it's in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and there's not too many cities to choose from when they're deciding what city to put for that time zone. But for a world timer, I think one of the things they've really done is it's a very clean design, and a lot of world timers are very busy and a little bit hard to read. I think this one is extremely legible. It's easy to read the local time with the 3 hands, and it's easy to read the time in any one of the world time zones that's listed. So I think, really, really well done by Orient in the design of the watch. You can see as I turn it, the dial, it's kind of a champagne color. Depending on the light, in really bright white light, it looks almost like a light silver. And then, if you're out to eat or somewhere in sort of dimmer amber lights, it's more of a cream color, as you can kind of get a feel for that right here. And then it's got a little bit of a metallic sunburst effect to it, which you can just start to see here. The outer bezel, if you can't tell from the video, it's black, and the printing on it is silver, and then black typing around black printing around the dial. The Orient logo, the actual little crest right there, is an applied logo, and then it's got the applied hour markers, which are kind of like a high polish black application. Looking at the non-crown side, you can see how the whole case is a high polish, so there's no brushed areas. Again, in keeping with the sort of clean look of the dial, I think they went for a very clean look around the entire watch, so not trying to do too much. Looking at the crown side, you can see the two crowns, the main crown here and this one for to turn the outer bezel. And then finally here is that, that movement. So you can see they've done a little bit of work. It's got kind of a perlage pattern to the mechanism, and then the rotor down there has kind of a striping pattern saying Japan movement 21 joules, Orient Watch Company Limited. I'll talk about that in a little bit, sort of what I think about the finishing on this a little bit later. And then below you can see here it does have water resistance of 50 meters, so that makes it, you know, good. So if you're traveling and you get caught out in the rain, you know, you're not gonna, your watch isn't gonna get ruined by a shower. You don't want to jump in a pool with it, but it does have that 50 meters of water resistance. In terms of the operation, if I pull the crown out to the second click here, so you can see it's got the regular setting of the hands, which is very smooth. Going into the first position, it if I turn sort of looking at it counterclockwise, I think of this as down because the top of the crown is going down. That's the setting the date. And if you turn it clockwise, or so that the portion facing you is going up, that will set the world time inner bezel in 1 hour or 1/2 hour increments. There are some half time zones in the world, so I suppose that's why they chose to make it go in half-hour increments. So then this second smaller crown here then adjusts in either direction the outer bezel, so whatever city you're in, however you want that displayed, arranged, you can decide that for yourself. So you can, for instance, always keep the GMT for London on top if you want. I keep the time zone I'm in on top, and then in an instance where so I'm in the central time for the US, so I keep Chicago up, and then like let's say I was to travel to London, I could, so I know it's just coming up on 2 o'clock or 1400 hours in Chicago or in Central Time Zone. So if I put the London, the GMT, I kind of wish it said LON instead of GMT for London, just because Greenwich Mean Time doesn't have daylight savings time and London does. So I think you're a little more accurate with that. But you know, lots of watches say GMT, and I'm being nitpicky on that regard. So anyways, I've set the outer bezel to the city that I've hypothetically landed in, but I know Chicago here is 1400. So if I were to just rotate that outer bezel to, you know, about the, I forgot what time it was. I think it was about 10 after or 5 after there. So if I rotate that outer bezel to the same minutes time, but so the right 24-hour time is by the city I just left, then, you know, it should be right for the city I've landed in, unless, again, you have a daylight savings time kind of issue. The other thing I'll note about the dial, which is kind of nice, is they do have this kind of grooved texture where the date numbers are and where the power reserve numbers are. So, you know, a little extra detail there. And they've done a nice job with that sort of thing. So as I think about this watch overall, you know, I just think it's really a tremendous value. I really like, you know, I'm kind of always been interested in travel and interested in different parts of the world. So having a GMT movement really appealed to me. But some of them, you know, like I said earlier, some of the designs for GMTs are so busy and difficult to read. And I really appreciate the design that Orient did on this one to make it really clean and legible. And I also like that it kind of straddles that line between, a watch that you can wear either in a more of a dress situation. It's a little large for a dress watch, but it's a clean enough design that it works for that. But it's also, maybe a little dressy for a casual watch, but with the big size and kind of the bold hour indices and the bold outer bezel, it really does look nice. The watch comes with, one thing I'll point out, is it comes with, instead of this sort of black calfskin strap with contrast stitching, it actually comes with this black alligator or crocodile print strap. And, I'm not a big fan of it. It's pretty glossy and it's pretty stiff. And the stiffness, I have an Orient Bambino that came with a similar material strap, and the stiffness and the glossiness for that don't bother me. But I thought it was just a little bit much for this, and it actually, I think it looks a lot nicer on this calfskin strap with it's a little sort of semi-gloss or semi-matte finish, and a little more padding, and the contrast stitching I think works better for it. It also does come on this signed deployment clasp, which I've switched over to this aftermarket strap. And, it's not the greatest deployment clasp that's ever been, but, it's solid enough, and, it works, and I do like having the deployment clasp. So I think that's a nice touch. And this extra strap, this is a $25 strap, so it's not like I had to spend a ton to really upgrade that. If I'm evaluating the watch overall, I think the four things that really, are the reason that you buy mechanical watches and nicer watches anyway are the movement, the materials, the finishing, and the design. So if I work through those, the movement, it's for me, it's running about, if I'm wearing it, it's running sort of about 10 seconds a day fast. And if I have it just left for a day, sitting face up, then, it's running about 15 to 20 seconds fast. So that's not exactly super amazing performance, but it's within line for what you expect for, sort of non-calibrated mechanical movement in this price range. I think as a value proposition to get a movement that, it's reliable from everything I've heard. It runs fine. It's accurate enough for daily use for me. And to get that at this price range with the power reserve and the world time function, I don't think you're doing too bad. In terms of the materials, it's what you'd expect for a watch in this price range. It's, stainless steel case. Like I said, the strap that it comes with could be a little better. So, I'd knock it down a notch there. But, it's what you'd expect for a watch in this range. I don't think it's anything sort of extraordinary, but I don't think it's anything disappointing either. In terms of the finishing, the case, like I said, it's a high polish case all around. So they didn't give themselves, a huge amount of opportunity to show off any finishing to the case. It's nicely done. The polish is nice, but it's nothing, really mind-blowing. The finish to the movement, I think, it's nice. And actually, this light that I'm recording under probably shows it off. Some of those, the perlage and the striping, a little more obviously than you'd see it, under normal light. But it's nice enough. One thing I wish they had done to this, and if I pull out their little catalog here, you can see they have some watches that are not, worlds apart price-wise, that have the sort of the signed rotor with the logo and the painted-in logo, instead of just having Orient Watch Company engraved into it. And, that would be the sort of thing that I think would take this movement, the look of it, just up another notch, which I'm sure there's a reason they didn't do that. I don't know what goes into the manufacture of these things, but it would have been a nice touch. I do think the finishing on the dial is pretty nice. It's got that sort of metallic sunburst. It's got the little extra sort of textured striping in the date dial and the power reserve dial, the applied logo, the applied markers, and the finish on the applied markers, that high polished black, is it's really nicely done, and so it really catches the light interestingly and adds quite a bit of depth to the dial. The hands are the same material as those markers, that high polished black, and they look nice. And I think that outer bezel, the black outer bezel with the silver printing on it, all the printing's really crisp and nice, and I think it really, I haven't looked at it under a loop, so I'm sure there's more crisp printing that exists in the world, but it's pretty nicely done. The other thing I'll add too, going back to materials, I forgot to mention, it does have sapphire, anti-reflective coated sapphire glass on the front, so that's nice to keep it looking nice and hopefully resisting some scratches. I believe this is just a mineral crystal back, so it's not sapphire on the back, which is sort of less importance. Finally, in terms of the design, I think they've really hit a home run here. And maybe the sort of lack of cost, the price bracket that they had to stay into for this forced them into this simpler design. They just couldn't do as much and provide the watch at the price point they were looking to hit. But, it's just so nice and clean and wearable and goes with everything. And I think it's a really attractive, I think it's just a really attractive watch. Orient does have a couple different color options. They have an all black dial with silver marking, printing, and markers, and they have an all black one with sort of rose gold toned. But I kind of like this two-tone look. I think it's sort of the classiest one of the bunch. The case, like I said, they've kept it simple, and I think it works for this. Maybe some brushed areas would have been nice, but and they might have held up better over time that way. But I think the case it's simple, it works. I think it's well done. As I said earlier, I wish they did have the logo on the rotor. That would have been a nice touch. And the crowns on it are unsigned, so it would have been a nice touch to have a signed crown there. And Orient does make watches in this sort of price range that have a signed crown. So, again, I'm sure there's a reason they didn't do it here, but it would have been a nice little extra element to put in. But overall, for this price of watch, I think they've really hit the ball out of the park. I'm extremely pleased with this, and I'm not the most experienced reviewer of watches, or I'm fairly new to my interest in these things, but I've gone on and out to when I'm in Chicago or I'm in a bigger city, I'll go to a nicer boutique and try on some really high-end watches. And where this passes the test for me is I went in Chicago and tried on a Lange Datograph, and obviously it's obvious the Datograph is a better watch. Like, I'm not trying to make a crazy claim that in the absolute sense that this is on the level of a Lange, but after trying on the Lange, picking this back up off the counter and putting it on my wrist, I was still really pleased with it. I was proud that I was wearing this watch. And so, to have something that costs, what is it, 1/200th or something like that of the Lange, that, when you get done wearing the high-end watch and you putting this back on, that you still feel good about it. I think that's saying something. It's it's about as good a value as you're going to find in watches. I think that's what Orient does best. My Bambino, I also have a really high opinion of and love to wear, and I think this one is even maybe a step above that in terms of value. It's just a really classy watch, really well designed. I think as you get more sophisticated into looking at watches, the things, the subtleties of the movement and the subtleties of the finishing are the things that you start paying lots of money to improve upon. But they've done a good job with those things, with this really clean and great design. So if you can't tell, I'm very, very pleased with this. And, I think at being able to get one for right around $300, it's sort of, with the Power Reserve and the World Time Movement, it's sort of about as cheap an entry point into sort of a little more complicated feeling watch. I mean, I don't know that a world time function like this is actually the most technically complicated thing to do, but it does add those extra elements that make you feel like, you're wearing something that's a little bit more special than just a three-hand watch telling the time. So, I think if this is a design that appeals to you, they certainly haven't missed anything about it that should hold you back in your interest in this watch. So that went on a little bit longer than I expected, but that's my review of the Orient Adventurer. And I would tell you to subscribe to my channel, but there's not probably going to be any more watch reviews on it, or not anytime soon. But if you want to see information about photographing in the national parks, feel free to subscribe to my channel, or else just give this video a like if it helped provide some information that is useful to you. Again, I kind of wished someone had taken the time to make a video about it before I had bought it, but I took the plunge and glad I did. So that's my review of the Orient Adventurer, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.